Hello, this is Francesco from FreeFX. Welcome back. I've had a few days off and just wanted to give you an update. So my last video was on Thursday, and just a quick disclaimer from FreeFX. So the topic of the day is overbought euro ? And you're wrong. Indeed, it's a difficult one to guess because we've got this situation here. So let me just kind of talk you through what's been happening. This morning we've had the German gross domestic product GDP figures, not bad, and then we've got the USD just came by, and that was worse than expected. Well, the different metrics, obviously, there's personal consumption, but overall it wasn't a rosy picture. So that's kind of shot the euro back up. What's been happening is, if we go back to our CME Futures, you'll see on the daily here that, in fact on the hourly, put it back to the daily, we've got quite a big candle forming from what about, let's say, 118. And this candle is basically bearish to bring us down back to kind of 117. The last kind of week, well, it's been 7 days of straight buying and rising in the euro, and then a slight break here on Tuesday. Wednesday was kind of positive, and today we've kind of come down from 118. And just in the last few minutes from the kind of 2 p.m. sort of North American opening, we've had a big move up from about 117.50 straight up to almost touching 118 within 10 minutes, and now it's just kind of come down again. You won't see that in here because it's the daily. But the sell volume so far has not been tremendous. It's going to be less than, so it's not a kind of conviction based, more like maybe people taking off profits and stuff like that. If you go back to the hourly here, you can see the situation. If I just shrink this a little bit, so going back a few days and weeks, we had all these sort of peaks each day. There would be a peak of buying around the open of the North American session, and this pushed the euro back up each time more. And then you can see that there's a massive sell that happened here on Wednesday, but that didn't really propel the euro lower. It sort of just stopped to go any higher. So we kind of stayed between 117.50 and 118 in the last 24 hours. That kind of gives an idea that we're kind of stuck there. And we go back to our chart here. I made a sort of puzzled face, and you know, I think it's mainly a question of, well, we've got this situation here, and then we ask the question, is the euro overbought? Well, obviously, that's where I said you're wrong, because yes, if you look at something like the RSI, and I put an 80 mark sort of barrier instead of a 70 for the overbought, we were just touching 80 here in March on the 9th when we kind of climbed back down to 107 from 114. Then we had another episode of overbought on the 5th of June, just about a month later, sorry, 3 months later, and that sort of again shrunk away, but not as much. If you see the move there from here to here, this move is, well, about a third of the size of that, and then it sort of merrily continued on its way up, went past that level that we were stuck on in March and June, and we've got up to this. So a huge move. We're looking at from this low here to about 9% move, yeah, from here to here. So pretty steep climb. We're again in overbought. This time it's actually crept up past 80, just nudged higher than that, and just below it. So we sort of stalled there, and RSI is sort of not really diverged. But essentially, we are potentially overbought. What does that mean? Well, we haven't got massive sell volumes yet for today, formed in the volume candle on CME Futures. So we don't really know how much selling is going to be there. We've had the FOMC rate decision yesterday and the speech, but that hasn't really created much of a kind of euro sell-off because, well, nothing really was discussed that was new. Support packages, etc. All that given, no rate decision change, so staying the same. And essentially, we don't really have new information. In essence, the euro is pumped up to continue higher. That's where the sort of overbought question mark, you're wrong, idea comes from. So I would say that if we look at sort of more historically where we're at and we go to our weekly, and you can see that, well, essentially we don't really have the final push to these levels in January of 2018. Now, can we get there? Do we have the conditions? Is this rise just oversold, response to oversold, basically coming back to, as you can see from the weekly point of view, we're not overbought yet. And if we think about where we were before, we had this situation back in September 17, where we were overbought and it sort of came down. There was divergence because the RSI weekly was coming down, and then there was actually a response higher, and then it was overbought here, but at a much higher level at January 2018. At what level is that? 124, 125. So clearly we've got a situation where we're not quite overbought to those levels. There's no divergence as such, so we could get back up. But this is a weekly. I tend to go by the daily, so this is kind of more long-term view. I did also mention this before, and I'm going to go back to it because it's something that I've sort of discussed before. And I'm just going to do it live so that you can see how this is done if you've not used one before. I'm going to make a channel essentially, and the channel is going to be this. If I take a parallel channel option, this is in trading view, and make this like so. Okay. Now, when I was doing this years ago, I remember we were about here. Let's make it about that. So you can see that I'm touching these points there and there, and then I'm going to stop there. So a few years I was doing this when we were about, I think it's 2012. We kind of away from this bottom. I was predicting that we'd come down here. We didn't until later, but we did come back down to the floor of this channel, and we have bounced back up. Now, if we extended that, you can see that extend it is going to include a lot of useful kind of touching points there in February 18 that we mentioned, that high. And then basically we are kind of there at the moment. So if I extend that even further, you can see more clearly that we're there. I'm going to delete that little face, make some space there. So that's where we're at. And this is the point where we think, well, it's on this top of the trend channel. RSI on the daily says overbought, but do we have any room for movement? Well, if you broke past this channel, which hasn't happened for the last, this is a channel that overall is taking 12 years to form. So it's kind of a strong kind of conviction, but there is no reason why this can go back up to this level. And then you could go to a different kind of way of approaching this and start throwing other things at it. So you could say, well, I'm not really sort of too convinced about that, so I'm going to try and do something else. For example, I'm going to try, I don't know, I could sort of throw something like, let's say I could throw something at it. For example, I could throw a pattern on it. I could use pattern like Fibonacci retracement. So let's do Fibonacci retracement, and there we go. I'm going to do some fibs, and I go from there down to this low here. Okay. And then sort of draw some conclusion from there. So we'll take this sort of 104 as your floor, and then go, okay, From this bottom, this move down, we've retraced up to 0.23, and that's where we are at the moment. There's more room to retrace, as you can see. A very strong level here is 68, and then it does seem to coincide, and also the 0.38 as well. These do seem to coincide with the points where it touches with the upper trend channel. So if you're into Fibonacci, you can say, well, from this low, the first retracement is where we are now, the 0.23, and it coincides with the top of the trend channel. The next one is a 0.38, okay, and that coincides with this level here again against the trend channel top. And then we've got 0.68, which is again coinciding with that, and so on. And then the 0.78 coincides with the trend channel at the top there, etc. So essentially the next big move would be from 108 to the 0.38, which is at there, 1.24 and so on. That is the end of my video. Please subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want, and I'd be very happy also to hear some questions from you if you have any, and I'd be delighted to answer or try to. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.